Hello everyone, welcome to the second lecture of our week number 3 where we are talking about the properties of pure substance. In the previous lecture, I have very quickly tried to review the thermodynamics involved with the phase change process with particular emphasis on the liquid to vapor or vapor to liquid phase change, because that is the more prevalent situation in engineering applications. Of course, we could have discussed the other possible phase changes as well, like the one involving solid and liquid phase or solid and gaseous phase, but the general thermodynamics remains the same, and therefore, we generally like to discuss about the phase change process involving pure substances, mostly in terms of the liquid vapor phase change. Now, from that concept we have seen that generally during the liquid to vapor or vapor to liquid phase change, we commonly can have three different kinds of regimes: the compressed liquid regime, the superheated vapor regime, and the mixture regime or saturated mixture regime. The saturated liquid state is the transition point between the compressed liquid state and the saturated mixture state, whereas the saturated vapor is the transition point between the saturated mixture and the superheated vapor stage. And we have seen that, so for the saturated state generally corresponds to a situation where pressure and temperature are dependent on each other. Therefore, while for compressed liquid and superheated vapor state we can use pressure and temperature as the two independent intrinsic properties required to identify any other possible property, we can't do that for the mixture zone. Rather, we have to define a new property which we have identified as the quality. I just briefly touched upon the name quality, but we shall be discussing a bit more on that. And normally during a typical thermodynamics course or undergraduate thermodynamics course, I would have preferred to spend 2 or even 2.5 lectures on whatever we have summarized in the previous one, but this being the second thermodynamics course or second level thermodynamics course, where it is expected that you already know basic thermodynamics, so I have tried to go through very quickly. Still, if you have any query, you can always write back to me for any kind of clarification. Now, there couple of very important points that we have identified is the critical point and the triple point. And also one thing we have learned, that whenever we are talking about two phases of a substance in equilibrium, then that must be under saturation condition. That is, whenever we are having a liquid phase and a vapor phase of the same substance under equilibrium situation, in an equilibrium state, then that must be under the saturated condition, that is the corresponding pressure and temperature will be the saturation pressure and saturation temperature. Similarly, if we have three phases of the same substance in equilibrium, then that must be moving somewhere along the triple line, during which or along which the pressure and temperature are again dependent on each other, but the specific volume may keep on varying depending upon the relative fraction of both the phases. The same applies for liquid vapor phase change as well, like temperature and pressure remains constant, but the vapor fraction that keeps on changing along with the increase in the vapor content or along with the change in the liquid content. Now, the critical point is something that I would like to spend a bit more time today to start the discussion, and after discussing the critical point, I shall be moving on to the use of thermodynamic property tables. Remember, in the previous week we talked about or we developed the generalized relation for thermodynamic properties, but as I have mentioned during the previous lecture, there are several situations where it is not easy to identify a straightforward PVT relationship which you can subject to some mathematical manipulation, and therefore, quite often we may have to depend on these thermodynamic tables. So, today we shall be learning the use of those thermodynamic tables in relation with the liquid vapor phase change process or in relation with the three regimes that we have identified. But before that, we have the critical point to talk about. Now, this is the generalized PV diagram that we have seen, which is applicable for any substance. Remember, here we are discussing mostly in context of water, but that is true for any kind of pure substance. So, we have seen the PV diagram, and a constant temperature line will look like the couple of dotted lines shown here, that is, as the pressure keeps on decreasing, the volume increases, but in the compressed liquid zone, liquid being mostly incompressible, the change in volume or specific volume with pressure is extremely small. That is why if you follow any one dotted line, let us say if we start from this particular point and move up to the corresponding saturation point, which is this, you can find you can find the corresponding change in specific volume may be only this much. So, only this much change in specific volume that we are talking about during the change in pressure from some level like this to a, so the level like this, the saturation pressure, that is a large change in pressure is causing only a small change in volume, that is mostly because of the near incompressible nature of the liquid. During the phase change process, pressure and temperature both remains constant, and then in the superheated vapor regime, again with change in pressure, with reduction in pressure, volume increases rapidly. Now, vapor is much more compressible, therefore small change in pressure can cause a large change in volume. Like if we pick up two random pressure level, let us say we pick up one pressure level like this and another pressure level like this, you can see corresponding change in volume is this much, which is a very large amount in comparison with the liquid. That is because of the compressible nature of the vapor phase. Now, we have the saturated liquid line, which is the locus of all the saturated liquid state for all possible pressures or all possible isotherms. Similarly, we have the saturated vapor line, this one, which is the locus of all the saturated vapor state corresponding to all possible isotherms. And as we keep on moving to higher pressure side, the distance between saturated liquid state and saturated vapor state for a given pressure or temperature, that keeps on reducing, that is the change in the specific volume that keeps on reducing. Like if you see in the diagram, we have talked in the previous lecture also, for the temperature T1, the saturated liquid volume and saturated vapor volume. So, this much is the difference in their specific volume. Whereas, if we go to a higher temperature T2, then the specific volume corresponding to saturated liquid may be something like this, and specific volume corresponding to saturated vapor may be something like this. So, corresponding change in specific volume is significantly smaller in the second situation. So, this is V1 to 2 for temperature T1, this is your V1 to 2 corresponding to temperature T2, which is definitely much smaller. And as we keep on moving to higher pressure or higher temperature, this value keeps on reducing continuously till we reach to the critical point where the saturated liquid state and saturated vapor state merge with each other, and there is no distinction between liquid and vapor at this particular juncture. So, critical point is a property for any fluid, and therefore, any substance has a fixed value of pressure and temperature at the critical point. But apart from being the point which removes the distinction between liquid and vapor phase, there is some further importance or significance of critical point as well. Now, let us follow any particular temperature line. Let us follow the temperature line shown as T1. So, let us start with a superheated vapor state, say somewhere here. We are starting from the state point, and at constant pressure we are increasing the pressure of the system. So, what will happen? As the pressure increases, we shall be moving in this line, that is the volume keeps on decreasing, and at some point or after continuous increase in pressure, at some point we shall be reaching the saturation pressure, which is this much. So, this is your P sat corresponding to this temperature T1. So, at this particular portion, with any further effort to increase the pressure will not cause any change in pressure, rather that will cause a change in phase, that is the superheated vapor now starts to condense to gets converted to the liquid phase, and with continuous effort to increase the pressure we will keep on condensing the vapor till it reaches the corresponding saturated liquid state, and from that point onwards again the pressure can keep on increasing. So, that we all know now. Now, let us do this for a temperature which is higher than the critical temperature. Then a constant temperature line where the temperature is higher than critical temperature, how that will look like? The line may be somewhat like this. Okay, let me draw in a better way. The line may be somewhat like this. So, here the temperature along this particular line, temperature is higher than the critical temperature. So, if we start from say this particular point and maintaining this constant temperature, we are increasing the pressure, then what will happen? As you keep on increasing the pressure, it is not coming in contact with the saturation dome, therefore, the phase change will never get initiated, and you will see continuous increase in pressure and continuous reduction in the specific volume, but no distinct change in phase. Therefore, when we are operating at a temperature higher than the critical temperature, then just by simple pressurizing we can't convert a vapor to the liquid phase, or we can't force a vapor to condense. So, in a way, when we are dealing with a temperature level higher than the critical temperature, the vapor phase becomes non-condensable during any constant temperature process. Of course, we can cause a change in temperature from this point onwards, like moving through several different temperature levels and may reach at a saturation point like this, but that is not the focus here. Here we are looking to move along a constant temperature line, and the line such that temperature is higher than critical temperature. Then we can see that we can never condense a superheated vapor by operating at that level. Similarly, if we are operating at a pressure higher than the critical pressure, let us we pick up a line like this. Here definitely the pressure is higher than the critical pressure. Now we start from a point like this. From this point, keep maintaining the pressure constant if we reduce the temperature of the vapor. If that vapor temperature reduces, then the specific volume will reduce. So, we are moving along this line. Remember, the pressure is constant. So, we are moving along the horizontal line towards smaller volume side, and you can again see here that the pressure remains constant, temperature decreases, correspondingly specific volume decreases, but there is no change in phase because it is not at all coming in contact with the vapor dome. So, when we are operating at a condition beyond above the critical point, then we can't convert the vapor to a liquid phase, or we can't initiate any condensation process by any simple way. That is for any temperature level above critical temperature, we can't do it by simple compression. Similarly, for any pressure level beyond the critical point, we can't do it by simply changing the temperature at a constant pressure. We have to change both pressure and temperature simultaneously, and that is why often the substances which belong at a state above the critical point, we call them gas or non-condensable gases, because we at a constant temperature we can't condense these gases simply by reducing or increasing its pressure. Whereas, when we are dealing with a substance which is below its critical point, we call it a vapor. Like a substance or the superheated vapor which is at temperature T1 or T2, they should be treated as vapor, because maintaining that constant temperature simply by compressing we can convert them to liquid, but that we can't do for any temperature level above the critical point. For example, if we pick up say water, for water the critical pressure is 22.06 megapascal and critical temperature is 373.95 degree Celsius or 374 degree Celsius roughly. So, if we talk about the standard atmospheric condition, which is something like 0.1 megapascal and say 30 degree Celsius, here both pressure and temperature for water is below the critical point values. Then what will happen? Then suppose if your atmospheric temperature is 30 degree Celsius, this temperature may be this T1, then maintaining that constant temperature simply by increasing its pressure, you can make water vapor to condense to liquid. Similarly, if you are at the atmospheric pressure level, which is 0.1 megapascal or 1 bar, then at this constant pressure, then you may be operating somewhere along this. At this constant pressure, if you just reduce the temperature, you can make this vapor to condense, and therefore, the water under normal atmospheric condition should be treated as vapor. However, if we are dealing with water in some industrial application, water vapor that is where the temperature is something like 1000 degree Celsius, quite commonly possible in IC engine or gas turbine applications. Here we are having a gas mixture whose temperature is 1000 degree Celsius. Then the water vapor present at this temperature is at a temperature much higher than the critical temperature, and therefore, at this temperature by simply pressurizing this vapor we can't convert it to a liquid, and so for this particular condition water should not be called a vapor, water should be called gas, because it is at a condition much beyond its critical point. Let us talk about any other substance. Let us say our second substance that we are choosing is helium. For helium, the critical point values are 0.23 megapascal, which is still higher than the atmospheric pressure, but its critical temperature is minus 267.85 degree Celsius. So, this is extremely small, that is the under normal atmospheric condition, even in most of the cryogenic applications as well, the temperature of helium is well above its critical temperature. So, we can't convert helium to the liquid stage by simply compressing it. We first have to reduce the temperature below this value, and then only by simple compression we can convert helium to liquid state. Therefore, helium under normal atmospheric condition should be called a gas and not vapor. The same is true for all common gases like oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen. They all have critical temperature well below the atmospheric temperature, and that is why we should call them non-condensable gases. However, that is not true for water vapor or certain other substances like ammonia, etc. Even carbon dioxide. You must have noticed during the previous lecture, carbon dioxide has a critical temperature of only about 31 degree Celsius, about 304 Kelvin, and therefore, under normal atmospheric condition, it particularly in hot climates of most part prevailing in most part of India during summer, the atmospheric temperature may be above the critical temperature of carbon dioxide, and therefore, carbon dioxide vapor can be condensed to the liquid state. There is another significance of the critical point, mostly from mathematical point of view, which is this. If we plot the PV diagram and then plot the isotherm corresponding to critical temperature, then you will find that this isotherm, that is I am talking about this red line, this isotherm exhibits a point of inflection at the critical point. Point of inflection means its slope becomes 0 at that point, that is mathematically we can write dou P dou V corresponding to T equal to T critical, that is for an isotherm where the temperature is equal to critical temperature, this dou P dou V equal to 0. And not only this, even it has been found that the second derivative of the same thing for T equal to T critical, that is also equal to 0. These two are very important mathematical criteria which we shall be using in the next lecture while talking about the van der Waals equation of state. So, this is the discussion that we need to have related to the critical point. What we are going to discuss now is the way to calculate the properties in this compressed liquid region, saturated liquid vapor region and superheated vapor region, as long as we are restricting ourselves to the critical point values. So, saturated liquid and vapor state, as we have mentioned, refers to the two extreme points of the mixture region, that is for a given temperature or maybe given pressure, the point where the liquid is just about to vaporize is referred to as a saturated liquid state, where the point where vapor is about to condense is referred to as a saturated vapor state. So, these are the two lines corresponding to this. Now, one important convention in thermodynamics. In thermodynamics, the saturated liquid state is generally represented by a subscript small f, or any property associated with the saturated liquid state is given the subscript small f, whereas any property associated with the saturated vapor state is given the subscript small g. That is when you are talking about something like specific volume at the saturated liquid state. Let us say like the experiment of heating water at constant pressure that we talked about, saturated liquid state refers to the state number 2 there, that is under atmospheric condition at 100 degree Celsius it reaches the saturated liquid state. So, any property here like specific volume at this state should be called Vf, like enthalpy at this state should be called H small f, like this. Whereas, if we talk about the state 4 there, which is the saturated vapor state where 100% of the fluid has been converted to vapor, then here we use the subscript G. So, the specific volume of this vapor state should be called Vg, enthalpy should be called Hg, internal energy should be called Ug, just like this. So, if we are talking about in general intensive property Y, then Yf refers to the saturated liquid, and Yg refers to the saturated vapor. So, saturated liquid state corresponds to a quality value of 0 where 100% of the mixture is liquid, whereas saturated vapor state the G refers to x equal to 1 where 100% of the mixture is vapor. When we are talking about the change in certain property from the saturated liquid state to the saturated vapor state, then like say Yg minus Yf, the change in the value of this y, this property y from saturated liquid state to saturated vapor state is quite often denoted using subscript Fg, like Y12 that we have written earlier. Instead of 1 2 we shall now be using F and G. So, the change in specific volume, like say we have started with this particular state where we have 100% liquid under saturated condition and converted that on heating to 100% vapor under saturated condition. Then we have moved from the state F to state G, then the corresponding change in specific volume should be denoted as Vfg, which is nothing but the difference between Vg and Vf. Corresponding change in the enthalpy of the mixture should be Hfg, which is Hg minus Hf. This is often called the enthalpy of vaporization, or more commonly the latent heat of vaporization. The change in enthalpy from liquid state to vapor state, or I should say saturated liquid state to saturated vapor state, is called the latent heat of vaporization. The property values quite often, or at least the pressure and temperature and any other F and G values for any other property are commonly given in terms of standard tables. Here whatever tables that I am going to show are adopted from the book of Cengel and Bowles. So, I am thankful to that particular book for providing all this data. You just need to know, you can refer to that book because of copyright issues I can't provide you the table directly, you can take it from this from the slides, but also these tables are not complete, but for detailed you can refer to any standard textbooks. So, look at this here, for the saturated water temperature table we have temperature given on the left hand side column and saturation pressure corresponding to their temperature in the second column. Like if we take up say 30 degrees Celsius, then you can directly see from the table that the pressure, saturation pressure corresponding to 30 degrees Celsius is 4.2469 kilopascal, and then corresponding Vf and Vg values are also given in meter cube per kg. Similarly, the tables are also available corresponding to pressure, where we have pressure as the independent variable in the first column. Then if you pick up say 10 kilopascal, then you can clearly see the saturation temperature corresponding to 10 kilopascal is 45.81. That is, if you want to convert certain quantity of liquid maintained at 10 kilopascal to vapor, then first you have to heat it up to the temperature of 45.81, and then you can easily see it to convert to vapor phase. You do not have to go to 100 degrees Celsius, because 100 degrees Celsius is the saturation temperature corresponding to the normal atmospheric pressure, which is 101 kilopascal. Similarly, the Vf and Vg values are also there. As I mentioned, these tables are incomplete. So, generally the saturated water temperature table is available up to the critical point, which I have just mentioned, 373.95 degrees Celsius, whereas the saturated water pressure table is again available up to the atmospheric up to the critical pressure, which is 22.06 megapascal. You have to carefully note the unit here is kilopascal, and for temperature is degree Celsius, not their typical SI units. So, you have to be careful while taking any data from the table regarding these units. Now, I would quickly like to revisit the Clapeyron equation. In the Clapeyron equation that we have discussed during the previous week, there we have actually I showed you this diagram. This is the typical PT diagram involving water. You can see this is the sublimation line involving liquid and vapor phase transition. This is the vaporization line involving liquid vapor phase change, and this is the melting line involving solid liquid phase change, and this is the triple point. Triple point for water corresponds to a temperature of 0.01 degree Celsius. Now, there corresponding to liquid vapor phase change, we have seen that saturation pressure is a sole function of saturation temperature, and accordingly we using the Maxwell's relation we derive this particular equation, dP dt saturation is equal to Hfg by Tsat into Vfg. They actually use the subscript 1 and 2. So, here we have gone to the standard subscript associated with liquid vapor phase change F and G. And then if we are assuming very low pressure, then we can simplify this to the Clausius-Clapeyron equation or Clapeyron-Clausius equation, where we can identify the saturation pressure corresponding to another temperature using knowledge for 1, that is Psat 2 divided by P sat 1 was equal to HFG divided by R 1 by T sat 1 minus 1 by T sat 2. So, if we have knowledge about the saturation pressure corresponding to temperature T sat 1, then for T sat 2 also we can calculate the saturation pressure using this equation, as provided we are dealing with low pressure level where we can assume the vapor to be an ideal gas. Let us see an application. We have seen the application of this one for R134A through a numerical example, but now we have the exact values available for water from the table which I have shown in the previous slide. Like I am talking about this particular tables where we have the saturation pressure and saturation temperature data available. Let us try to see the validity of this relation in terms of this table for low temperature. So, we have to estimate the saturation pressure of water at 105 degree Celsius and 120 degree Celsius using the data available corresponding to 100 degree Celsius, and these are your data. The R for water is given, HFG corresponding to 100 degree Celsius and saturation pressure corresponding to 100 degree Celsius, these are also given. So, let us do it first for 105 degree Celsius. So, 105 degree C, here you have T sat 1 corresponding to 100 degree Celsius for which all the data are known, which is basically 373.15 Kelvin. Remember that data available in the table and also in the chart here are in degree Celsius, in the question here are in degree Celsius, but these temperatures available in the Clausius equation or Clausius-Clapeyron equation are in Kelvin. These are absolute temperatures. So, we always have to do this conversion. T sat 2 for which we want to do the calculation is 105 degree Celsius, that is 378.15 Kelvin. Here your P sat 1 is this one, R and HFG are also given. So, let us apply the Clapeyron equation. So, log of P sat 2 divided by P sat 1 is 101.42 into 10 cube. Remember the value is given in kilopascal, that is equal to R upon HFG. Here R and HFG both are in kilojoule per kg Kelvin or kilojoule per kg. So, we can continue with them, or in their basic version we can write R as 4615 into 10 to the power 3 divided by HFG is 2256.4 into 10 to the power 3 into 1 by T sat 1. So, T sat 1 is 373.15 minus 1 by 378.15, which actually is going to give you P sat 2. I have pre-calculated the value. So, it is going to come as 120.604 kilopascal. So, this is the answer corresponding to P sat 2, that is P sat, or in formal terms I should write P sat corresponding to 105 degree Celsius. Now, let us do the same calculation for 120 degree Celsius. Here your T sat 2 is 120 degree C, that is 393.15 Kelvin. So, if you do the calculation following the same procedure, again I have pre-calculated the number, you have P sat at 120 degree C will be coming to be 197.516 kilopascal. Now, how accurate are these numbers? Let us compare them with the table. This is the table. So, first this is the data that is already given, 101.42 corresponding to 100 degree Celsius is given. Here I have not shown, here the unit is in degree Celsius, here the unit is in kilopascal for pressure. So, for 105 your table is giving 120.90 and you have got 120.60 kilopascal, which are relatively very close to each other. So, the value that you are getting for 105 degree Celsius is reasonably accurate following the Clapeyron-Clausius equation. However, what about 120? For 120 you actual value which is 198.67 and you have got 197.51. So, there is a difference of more than 1 kilopascal, that is about 0.5% error in the value. Now, this much of error may be okay in certain application, but in precise application that may not be the most correct one. Therefore, you can see that as we are moving to higher temperatures, or we are talking about a further large distance between the reference, which is 100, and the objective, that is 120, then your value error keeps on increasing. I would suggest you try to calculate corresponding to 130 following the same procedure and see what value you are getting compared to the actual one, which is 270.28. So, this is about the saturated liquid and vapor state and saturation pressure temperature. Let us now move to the saturated liquid vapor mixture. For a saturated liquid vapor mixture, we actually are dealing with a non-homogeneous substance, truly speaking, but whereas the definition of pure substance involves the term uniform or homogeneous. But you must have always seen when water boils in some container, you have liquid in certain portion of the volume, whereas vapor bubbles in certain other portions, leading to an non-homogeneity. However, in most of the thermodynamic analysis, we neglect this non-homogeneity and we assume, instead of having liquid in some part and vapor in some other part, we assume the entire volume to be filled up with some hypothetical fluid whose properties are average property of the entire mixture, something like this, where we are having properties Vf for the saturated liquid part, Vg for the saturated vapor part, and we assume the entire mixture to have a property V average. Now, how to calculate this V average or any general property Y average? Let us assume we are dealing with a mixture of having total mass M total, out of which we have Mf part occupied by liquid and Mg part occupied by the vapor phase. Now, one interesting characteristic for this mixture is that the liquid part actually retains its saturation state properties and the vapor part retains its saturated vapor properties. That is, from a mixture, let us assume, say we have a mixture where 50% is liquid and 50% is vapor. If by some means, if we can completely separate these two, then you will find that the 50% of the mass which is liquid actually refers to the saturated liquid state corresponding to that pressure or temperature, whereas the vapor part, that 50% mass which is vapor, corresponds to the saturated vapor state corresponding to that pressure and temperature. That is, both liquid and vapor retains the saturation point properties, or we can say the liquid part will always be corresponding to their F properties and vapor part will always be having their G properties. Then if we want to calculate the total volume of this mixture, then or specific volume of this mixture, let me say, then if capital V refers to total volume, then it will be equal to M total into V average, which is the average specific volume for this, and this V total will be what? Volume occupied by the liquid phase plus volume occupied by the vapor phase. Now, how much volume is occupied by the liquid phase? What we have just mentioned, then we can say that the liquid part will always be having the small Vf as a specific volume. So, capital Vf should be Mf into small Vf. Similarly, the vapor part will always be having Vg as a specific volume. So, we can write then this V average is actually equal to Mf upon M into Vf plus Mg upon M into Vg, or we can write Mf to be equal to M total minus Mg upon M into Vf plus Mg upon into Vg, or actually I should have written M total here in the subscript also, or we have 1 minus Mg upon M total to Vf plus Mg upon M total into Vg. Now, what is Mg upon M total? Is represents the mass fraction of the vapor phase in the mixture. And what is our definition of quality X? Your quality definition was the same only, which is the mass fraction of the vapor in a total mixture of liquid vapor, that means it becomes 1 minus x into Vf plus x into Vg, or occasionally we write this as Vf plus x into Vg minus Vf, that is Vf plus x into Vfg, and that is what is shown in this diagram. Here this AB portion, the line segment AB refers to the portion occupied by the vapor V average minus Vf. Similarly, other portion, this total distance A to C is actually Vfg. Now, if you see from this relation, if you rearrange it, then we can always write x is equal to V average minus Vf by Vfg, and therefore, x can be written as the ratio of these two line segments AB and AC, and that is what we have here. So, for any intermediate point, that is during a mixture point, we have Vf at one end which corresponds to x equal to 0, Vg at the other end corresponding to x equal to 1, and this instead of specific volume for any property y, now for the mixture we can always write a mixture which is having a known pressure or temperature, say P sat or T sat, any one is sufficient, should be having the property of 1 minus x into Yf corresponding to the same pressure or temperature plus x into Yg corresponding to the same pressure or temperature, and this y can be any property. This y we can have specific volume, we can have specific internal energy, we can have specific enthalpy, we can have specific entropy, or any other property which can always be represented by this mass ratios. This way we can use the idea of this mass fraction or quality for a saturated liquid vapor mixture to calculate the properties. We just need to know the F values and G values, or sometimes instead of writing this way we can also combine them to write as Yf plus x into Yfg, which is the difference between G and F, like this. So, this way for any saturated mixture we can always calculate the properties, and these are the tables. Actually, I showed only a glimpse of the table, the temperature, pressure plus specific volume. Here it is a more complete table where we have internal energy, enthalpy and entropy, or I should say specific internal energy, specific enthalpy and specific entropy all taken into consideration. You can follow any horizontal line. This is a temperature table. So, temperature is an independent variable. Let us say we talk about 50 degree Celsius. So, if we follow the horizontal line corresponding to 50 degree Celsius, then this is the saturation pressure corresponding to this 12.352 kilopascal. These are the Vf and Vg values for this. These are the specific internal energies. So, you have Uf, Ufg and Ug. Truly speaking, Ufg is not required because Ufg is nothing but Ug minus Uf. But similar to this table, several tables also represent this Fg separately. So, these are the Hf, Hfg and Hg, and these are Sf, Sfg and Sg. So, for each of the cases, if you are interested, you can calculate this. You will always find that the Fg value is just the difference between G and F, and therefore, G and F alone are sufficient. Of course, no one can remember these values. We have to make use of these tables for calculating any mixture property. And another interesting thing to note here, that this table is for water, of course. So, for water, the value of Vf for all this case is extremely small. That is, you can almost blindly, at least up to the 75 degree Celsius, and truly speaking even well beyond that, you can blindly say this Vf is about 0.001 meter cube per kg, and your Vg is much greater than Vf over a large range of temperature and pressure as well. This is the corresponding pressure table. Again, this table is incomplete. This pressure level can go up to the critical pressure. You can see here again, for any pressure level you can see the Vg value is significantly larger than Vf. So, unless we are dealing with a very high pressure situation, we generally can neglect the volume of Vf. Yes. So, this HFG, these values are the latent heat of vaporization, whereas this is the entropy associated with the vaporization process representing the transition between F and G. Let us now try to solve couple of numerical exercises quickly to understand the use of these tables. Here the table that I have shown here, I am making use of the same table. It is just copied from the book of Cengel and Bowles, and the data values that I have here in this table are the one that I am going to use to solve this problem. Look at the first one. Here we are talking about a rigid tank containing 10 kg of water at 90 degrees Celsius. If 8 kg of water is in liquid form and the rest is in the vapor form, determine the pressure inside the tank and the volume of the tank. Now, here we have a rigid tank containing a mixture of liquid and vapor phase of water, and whenever we are talking about a liquid and mixture of a liquid and vapor phase under equilibrium term not specifically mentioned in the problem, but we can assume it to be in equilibrium, then whenever you are having a mixture, that has to be under saturation condition. So, actually we are dealing with a saturated mixture. So, the state that we have, state of the substance we have is that of saturated mixture. It is very important to understand the nature of the state at the beginning itself. Now, saturated mixture, what is the temperature or pressure, any one we need, temperature is given to be 90 degrees Celsius. Total mass, here your M total is 10 kg, out of which it is given that the liquid phase is having 8 kg. So, your MF is 8 kg, that means Mg is 10 minus 8, that is 2 kg, that is how much will be your X? Your X will be 2 upon 10, that is 0.2. So, now you know the saturation temperature and you know the quality, and therefore, the state is completely defined because you know two independent intensive properties. Remember, in the mixture for a saturated mixture you need to know either of temperature and pressure and the quality value for this, and using this now you can easily solve this problem. But before doing that, I would just like to go back to the previous table to mention you something. If the instead of quality you are given with some other property value, suppose it is given that you are dealing with a system where the pressure is 20 kilopascal and your pressure is your 20 kilopascal, and suppose the value of enthalpy is given. Now, you have to understand you are talking about what kind of state, compressed liquid or mixture or the superheated vapor. How can you do that? You have to check the two values corresponding to 20 kilopascal, which are this HF and your Hg. Just check this HF and Hg values. Now, if your H is less than HF, then which state you are belonging to? Your enthalpy of the fluid is less than the saturated liquid enthalpy, then you are in the compressed liquid zone. When your H is greater than Hg, then where you are? You are in the superheated vapor zone. For compressed liquid and superheated vapor, how to get the properties we shall soon be discussing. And only when your H is restricted within HF and Hg, then you are in the mixture zone, and the quality of the mixture you can calculate as H minus HF divided by Hg minus HF, thereby identifying the quality value and thereby making way to calculate all other properties. Therefore, even when the quality is not known, but some other property value is known, then you can easily calculate the state of the fluid. Now, coming back to this particular problem, so we now know the state, then how to solve this? You have to identify the pressure inside the tank. Now, what will be your pressure? Pressure has to be the saturation pressure corresponding to 90 degrees Celsius. So, you can check your table, the corresponding pressure will be coming to be 70.183 kilopascal. I am noting it from the table only, the table that I have shown. From there I am noting these values, and then you have to calculate the volume inside the tank or the volume of the tank. Now, total volume of the tank should be equal to the volume occupied by liquid phase plus volume occupied by the vapor phase. That is, if we take m out, then you can easily write this to be 1 minus x into Vf plus x into Vg, and Vf and Vg corresponding to what? It corresponds to your saturation temperature, which is 90 degrees Celsius. Now, from the table you note the value of Vf and Vg corresponding to this 90 degrees Celsius, and then evaluate this value. This final volume is going to be coming to be 4.73 meter cube. You please do this calculation and check whether you are getting this number. Another example, some more involved calculation. Here we are talking about 200 kg of saturated liquid water. So, it is clearly mentioned your initial state is of saturated liquid water. So, mass is 200 kg, state 1 is of F state, saturated liquid water, maintained inside a rigid tank, is completely vaporized to a constant at a constant pressure of 100 kilopascal. That is, your pressure P1 and P2 are equal and it is 100 kilopascal, and the final state, your state 2 is of, it is completely vaporized. So, final state is that of a vapor, which is G. No mention about superheating. So, we shall be taking in the saturated vapor state. You have to determine the amount of energy transferred to the water during the process. So, how can you calculate that? We are talking about some energy transfer, and whenever we are talking about energy transfer, we have to make use of the first law of thermodynamics, which gives you the energy balance. Now, what kind of system we are talking about? We are talking about a rigid tank, that means no boundary work, no movement of the boundary, and we are talking about a fixed mass. Mass is not changing, so we are talking about a closed system. Then if we write the first law of thermodynamics for a closed system with rigid wall, then we can write del Q minus del W is equal to dE, that is du plus d of kinetic energy plus d of potential energy. Now, here no mention is given about the changes in kinetic and potential energy of the system. So, we are assuming it to a stationary system. So, these two cancels out, and we have a rigid tank, no moving boundary work. So, del Q cancels out, del W cancels out. That means, during the process, the total heat transfer during the process 1 to 2 will be equal to U2 minus U1, the changes in the total internal energy of the substance, that is equal to m into small u2 minus small u1. Now, what is your state 2? State 2 is ug or g only, and state 1 is f, both correspond to the same pressure of 100 kPa. So, you can use the table corresponding to 100 kilopascal, get the uf and ug values. Mass is given to be 200 kg, and your finally calculated value is going to be coming as 417.64 megajoule. So, use the table to check whether you are getting this number or not. This way we can make use of this tables for saturated mixture. We shall be making several such use in later modules as well. Now, let us quickly talk about the superheated vapor. As we have seen, superheated vapor stage refers to the state beyond the saturated vapor condition. So, superheated vapor state can be identified when the pressure is less than the saturation pressure for a given temperature, or temperature is greater than the saturation temperature corresponding to given pressure, and instead of pressure and temperature some other property is given, say property y is given, specific value of the property, then if the value of this y is greater than yg corresponding to either of its pressure or temperature, whichever is given, then it is a superheated vapor that we are talking about. Yes. For superheated vapor, here any property y is a function of both pressure and temperature. We do not have any quality kind of thing, and pressure and temperature are independent of each other, and therefore, to have any kind of table you need to have separate table for each pressure and temperature. This is one typical table for superheated vapor, again adopted from the same book, the book of Cengel and Bowles. Now, here you can see there are several tables each corresponding to a different pressure, like I am showing just a few of them here. This is for 1 megapascal, corresponding to 1 megapascal when that is 10 bar, saturation temperature is 179.88 degrees Celsius. The value given in bracket next to the pressure value is actually the saturation temperature, and you directly have these quantities V, U, H and S specific values in this. So, suppose you are given with a condition that you are dealing with a system where the pressure is 1.2 megapascal and the temperature is 400 degrees Celsius. Then you have to identify the property values. How to do that? First, corresponding to this 1.2 megapascal, you check what is the saturation temperature corresponding to this. Now, corresponding to 1.2 megapascal, saturation temperature is 187.96 degrees Celsius. So, temperature is greater than saturation temperature corresponding to pressure. So, it is definitely in the superheated condition. So, you identify the corresponding superheated table, and which is this particular table corresponding to 1.2 megapascal, and from this table you have to identify the entry for 400 degrees Celsius. That entry is here on the extreme left. This is your 400 degrees Celsius. So, corresponding to 400 degrees Celsius, that is you move along the horizontal line. So, the entry in 1.2 megapascal table is this, or these are the values. So, whatever value you want to have, you can directly take it from there. Like suppose if your interest is entropy corresponding to this condition, your entropy directly you can note as 7.3793 kilojoule per kg Kelvin, the specific entropy that is, or any other value. Similarly, if you are suppose looking for the value of specific internal energy corresponding to 1.4 megapascal and 1000 degrees Celsius, then where to find this? This is a table point for 1.4 megapascal, 1000, it has a saturation temperature of 195. So, 1000 degrees Celsius definitely is a superheated one. So, this is your 1000 degrees Celsius, correspondingly specific internal energy is this much. Oh sorry, this is the specific volume. Be very careful, this is the specific internal energy, and also units are also there. Here unit is kilojoule per kg, be very careful about choosing the unit. And remember, these values are in Celsius, not in Kelvin. So, this way we can take the values for superheated vapor. Similar tables are also available for compressed liquid. Compressed liquid means the general situation where the pressure is greater than saturation pressure corresponding to its temperature, or temperature is less than the saturation temperature corresponding to its pressure, or if any general property Y is given, Y has to be less than YF corresponding to the pressure or temperature whichever is given. So, from there you can easily identify. Similar to the superheated vapor, here also Y is a function of pressure and temperature, and so we need to have similar tables just like the one shown here. Like here my example is pressure table for 5 megapascal and 10 megapascal. So, suppose you want to identify the enthalpy of liquid water at 5 megapascal and 120 degrees Celsius. So, your condition is 5 megapascal and 120 degrees Celsius. So, you check the table corresponding to 5 megapascal, saturation temperature is 263 degrees Celsius. So, this temperature is well beyond this. So, you are in the compressed liquid zone. So, in this 5 megapascal table now you identify 120, this is your 120. So, this is the line that is of your interest. From there you take the enthalpy, which is nothing but this one, 507.19 kilojoule per kg. So, this way we, similar to the superheated vapor table, you can also make use of the compressed liquid tables. But truly speaking, for compressed liquid often we do not have to use the table, because it has been identified that for the compressed liquid, again we are talking about compressed liquid which is very much incompressible or nearly incompressible. So, the dependence of these properties on pressure is quite weak. They are solely dependent on temperature, or they are mostly dependent on temperature. So, therefore, quite often we take the properties Y to be nearly or rather instead of taking the from the table, we assume y to be equal to yf corresponding to its temperature, not pressure, temperature. We just neglect the pressure dependence, whatever temperature value you have, we just take it from the table, or sorry, for corresponding to the yf for this. Particularly properties like specific volume or specific internal energy, these are fine. Enthalpy is more dependent on pressure. So, for enthalpy for compressed liquid, the function of pressure and temperature, we use instead of using the table, again use a slightly modified form where we take the HF value corresponding to the temperature plus we add this factor HF corresponding to the temperature plus Vf into P minus P sat corresponding to T, which takes care of if there is any small amount of compressibility for this. We can take one example to check. Let us suppose I give you a condition of 5 megapascal and 80 degree Celsius. So, 5 megapascal and 80 degree Celsius is the condition, and you have to identify specific internal energy following the table and also using this approach and compare for this. So, 5 megapascal and 80 degree Celsius, firstly saturation temperature is 263 degree. So, this is compressed or subcooled liquid. So, from the table the exact value is corresponding to this 80 degree Celsius, this is your exact value. So, your U obtained from the table is 333.82 kilojoule per kg, and if you follow the approximate approach, then U will be equal to UF corresponding to what, 5 MPa or 80 degree Celsius, UF corresponding to temperature, always temperature. So, UF corresponding to 80 degree Celsius, and that will be coming, you can check from the table again, that will be coming as 334.97, and you can see both values are very close to each other. Therefore, for properties particularly like specific volume or specific internal energy, and in most cases specific enthalpy also, there is hardly any error following this approximate approach, and therefore compressed liquid tables are much less used compared to the superheated vapor table. So, these are the ways we should use the tables. I would like to wrap up this by solving couple of numerical problems quickly. I have a problem here, please read it quickly. Here we are talking about a rigid tank which is divided into two equal parts by a partition. So, we have a tank which is divided into two equal parts. So, this is your part A and this is your part B, which are having equal volume. Initially one side of the tank contains 5 kg of water at 200 kilopascal and 25 degree Celsius. So, initially total volume is V by 2, where V is the, we are assuming V to be the volume of the tank. Here mass is 5 kg or M1, then we have P1 equal to 200 kilopascal and T1 equal to 25 degree Celsius. Second, other side is evacuated. Now, then the partition has been removed to allow water to expand into the entire tank. The water is allowed to exchange heat with the surrounding until the temperature in the tank returns to the initial value of 25 degree Celsius. So, in the final state your volume is that of the total volume, which is nothing but twice of V1, because the gas is now occupying the entire volume. What will be the mass? This is a rigid tank, no mass transfer. So, M2 equal to M1 means we are talking about a closed system in terms of the gas. And the final temperature T2, that is the same, which is 25 degree Celsius, but pressure may not be same. So, you have to calculate the volume of the tank and the heat transfer associated with this process to get the final temperature back to 25 degree Celsius. To how to approach it? Initial state is completely defined using these two values, 200 kilopascal and 25 degree Celsius. So, how you can get this 25 degree Celsius and 200 kilopascal. If I make use of the table now, from the table I can see that the Psat at this T1 corresponding to 25 degree Celsius, the saturation pressure is 3.1698 kilopascal, which is less than your pressure. That means your state is of compressed liquid. So, we are taking the specific volume using the approximate approach, Vf corresponding to T1, and Vf again taking from the table, it is coming to be 001 003 meter cube per kg. So, your V2 will be twice of V1 as mass remains constant, will be equal to 0.002006 meter cube per kg. Now, look at the second state, temperature is 25 degree Celsius and now you know the specific volume. From the specific volume and temperature data, we have to identify the state. This specific volume we have to now compare with the Vf and Vg corresponding to 25 degree Celsius. Now, this V2 here is greater than Vf corresponding to this T2. However, this V2 is less than Vg corresponding to T2. That means we are dealing with a saturated mixture. So, corresponding to this we can calculate the quality. Your quality X2 will be equal to V2 minus Vf corresponding to T2 divided by Vg minus Vf both corresponding to T2. You can do the calculation. Again I have pre-calculated the number. Here x is coming to be extremely small, 2.314 into 10 to the power minus 5. So, you know all the results, or you know the quality of this. Now, you have to calculate first the volume of the tank. How much will be the volume of the tank? You can easily calculate the volume of the tank to be equal to m into small v2. Small v2 is known. So, your volume of the tank, actually I have not calculated this number. So, you please use your calculator, mass is given to be 5 kg, V2 is there, you can get the volume of the tank. And secondly, to calculate the heat transfer, you have to go to the first law of thermodynamics. So, we are using del Q minus del W is equal to du. I am directly writing du, assuming it to be a stationary system. It is a rigid tank, no moving boundary work. So, Q122 is equal to m into U2 minus U1, that is m into how much will be your U2? U2 will be UF plus X2 into UFG both corresponding to T2 minus what is U1? U1 can be approximated to be, this being compressed liquid, can be approximated to be UF corresponding to T1. Here incidentally T1 and T2 both are same. So, this will become just m into X2 into UFG corresponding to T2, and final value, okay, this one I have is 0.2666 kilojoule. So, this way we have made use of the compressed liquid data and mixture. And now I would like to close up this by using the superheated table. Here the question involves one adiabatic steam turbine. Let us try to do it very quickly. Here let me draw the TS diagram of this. Here the let me draw it properly. Here the initial state, here mass flow rate is given as 2 kg per second, P1 is 6 megapascal, T1 is 500 degrees Celsius. Now, you can check the value of this T1, this T1 is less than, this T1 is much greater than Tsat corresponding to this P1. So, we are talking about a superheated condition. So, on this TS diagram, if we plot the constant pressure line, let us say plot the 6 megapascal line, then your initial state may be somewhere here, state 1. and we are talking about an isentropic process during which the pressure drops to 0.3 megapascal. So, we draw the second pressure line, this is your P1 line, this is your P2 line, where P2 is 0.3 megapascal. So, your ideal process will be somewhat like this, and actual process is that of saturated vapor, that is at the end of this process actually it is coming out at a condition like this. So, 2 and 2 prime, 2 is the ideal one, 2 prime is the actual one. So, how to approach this? P1 and T1 given. So, from this you can easily calculate whatever required. So, you can calculate S1, H1, etc. Now, it is an isentropic process that is being followed in the turbine. If it is isentropic process, then S2 should be equal to S1, and if you use the values properly, here I do not have the numbers, you please check the table, you will find that this S2 is coming to be greater than SF corresponding to your P2, but less than Sg corresponding to your P2, indicating that the final state 2 is of saturated mixture. So, correspondingly you can calculate the x2 value I have, it will be coming something around 0.9795. So, this is your x2 value. So, from x2 you can now calculate your h2, which will be equal to hf plus x2 hfg, both hf and hfg corresponding to your P2, and so the ideal power output from this will be equal to m dot into h1 minus h2. But the actual exit state, because of the frictional losses, because of the irreversibilities that of that of saturated vapor. So, your H2 prime is actually Hg corresponding to P2, which you can get again from the table. So, your W dot actual is m dot into H1 minus H2 prime. If you do the calculation correctly, if you are able to take the data properly, you will find this will be coming less than the ideal one. And the isentropic efficiency for this turbine will be the ratio of these two, that is W dot actual by W dot ideal. So, this way we can make use of the superheated vapor table to use the concept of entropy. In the next lecture, I shall be trying to solve one problem involving exergy, where again we shall be making better use of all these tables. Till then, you please go through the lecture, go to the books, try to see how you to use those tables. Hopefully, you will be able to use those tables for solving any such kind of problems, and we shall be doing several such exercises in the future modules as well. So, this is where I would like to stop today. Today, we have briefly discussed the significance of critical point. Then we have talked about the saturated liquid and vapor state, how to use the property tables to calculate properties of saturated liquid vapor mixture, superheated vapor and compressed liquid, and also we have solved a few problems involving this. So, I hope you have enjoyed this lecture. We shall be coming back to with the third lecture of this week, where I shall be wrapping up with the equation of state for ideal and real gases. Till then, thank you.